From Apologetics Canada comes an epic Q&A with the Marquis de Sade of Reason, Dr. William Lane Craig, in a tragically ill-fated romantic comedy about a desperate philosopher and his abused logic. William Lane Craig Q&A. If God foreknows all my decisions, do I have free will?
Is free will possible if God knows all our thoughts and actions beforehand?
Good question.
Some people have adopted a viewpoint called theological fatalism.
Watch as the intrepid doctor misrepresents the argument by inserting the word necessarily with the sole purpose of forming a modal logic fallacy.
It reasons as follows. Necessarily, if God foreknows that I will do X, then I will do X. Premise 2, God foreknows that I will do X. 3, therefore necessarily I will do X.
And repeats himself.
Necessarily, if God foreknows that I will do X, then I will do X. 2, God foreknows that I will do X. 3, therefore necessarily I will do X.
Laugh along with the spectators as the determined doctor explains why his straw man is a fallacy, and then creates an infinite loop with his own labored logic.
That commits a fallacy in modal logic. It does not follow from those two premises that you will necessarily do X. All that follows from the two premises is that you will do X, but not that you will necessarily do it. You could refrain. And if you were to refrain, then God's foreknowledge would have been different.
What the fuck?
You will do X. And if you were to refrain, then God's foreknowledge would have been different.
Bill, what part of you will do X allows for if you were to refrain? You'll be on the edge of your butt as the bumbling doctor chokes on his own bullshit.
So, by acting one way or the other, I have the ability to act in such a way that God's foreknowledge would have been different than it is in fact. God's foreknowledge would have been different than it is in fact.
So, whatever you do is what God foresaw. But if you do anything else, God retroactively foresaw that. But if you make yet another choice, God retroactively foresaw that. And round we go. How will the enthralled questioner respond?
Okay, I'll have to go home and think about that for a minute.
Don't bother. One gets the impression that the good doctor concocted this convoluted composition one morning while creating a comparable compost.
I actually spent 7 years working full-time on this project.
7 wasted years, culminating in an infinite loop of will-dos and would-haves. Is there any theology that actually makes sense of the foreknowledge free will paradox?
Open theism is a movement within evangelical theology which thinks that God's knowing about the future is incompatible with human freedom.
Right.
So these people think that God does not know the future free acts of people, that he gambles on the future, that he often makes mistakes and goes wrong, and that he has to revise his plans because he didn't see what was coming.
Now that sounds more like the biblical God. Despite the doctor's mangled logic, can there still be a happy ending?
This is an issue which is splitting the evangelical church.